Online and on FM, this is the voice of the Muslim community, Heritage Radio.
Allah, 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 ya Allah, 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 ya Allah, 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 ya Allah.
You are listening to DBK and we're talking about a lot of things, all right? But the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the amazing event that just took place. It was an Eid event. Any thoughts on it, bro?
No, it's brilliant. I think
brilliant.
It was a big turnout, and which is always a good sign. It shows that when you have a big turnout, it's a sign of community spirit. It shows that the community is there. They just need a focal point, something to bring them out, and this is a fine example. I'm very happy.
Yes, I am also very happy. And right, let's carry on with the show. You're listening to DBK here, and we are talking about gurus and fake gurus, and basically people that lead us away from the righteous path, away from truth and goodness and facts and reality.
But isn't that? I think that's part of the culture that we live in now, and that's one of the pros and cons of social media. That you get these figures, these kind of messianic figures, and they draw lots of followers. Followers is the word on YouTube, on social media. Yeah. Interestingly enough, who follow them kind of semi-religiously, and it becomes a trend. I've seen people who really copy Joe Rogan and follow his style, and they just believe, I want to be like him. I want my own group. There's a guy, former Smallville actor, is I think his name is something Bernard. He's doing something very similar. Yeah, and he's very clever in the way he does it. He interviews his fellow actors and actresses, and by getting famous people on, he's gaining credibility. But I'll talk about that in a minute. So let's go back to the Spectator article. Finish off.
Just to recap, we are talking about Russell Brand and his amazing inflection point in his life, how he went from a darling of the left, sticking up for the oppressed, speaking out against Islamophobia, racism, inequality, everything, you name it. He was there in the trenches, and suddenly he is a darling of the far right. He's appearing on far right outlets, left, right and centre. And Spectator did a piece on him, and they explained this has been a 10-year process. Actually, I'm a big fan of his, and I can tell you straight, it's much longer than that. And I'm not going to talk about it right now, but there's a lot more nuance that is missed out in this article. But George Monbiot is a very, very respected. You like him, don't you?
Yeah, I know.
Very respected guy.
He's good. The video I saw with Joe Rogan, he was discussing personality traits, mental health, things like that.
He's a great writer, he's a great thinker. Yeah. So basically, he has noted that within 10 years, he went from somebody that he said he is my hero, and 10 years later, he did a piece in The Guardian saying, nah, not anymore. So, I mean, let's just quickly recap. There's just a lot of contradictions. He's talking about the evils of inequality, feminism, and cohabiting with an heiress, Jemima Khan, hanging out in the VIP areas with millionaire rock stars, that kind of thing. All while cultivating, according to The Spectator, a very curated, very synthetic image. It didn't haphazardly, just like Boris Johnson's hair did not happen by accident. It's a thing that is carefully crafted to manipulate people.
I mean, why is that? I mean, you said he had ADHD, which is a personality disorder.
Yeah. Let's leave that for another time. It's definitely a good topic, because we gotta explore all different facets of this. Yeah. But we'll carry on with The Spectator, and then we'll go into those tangents. So there was the COD mysticism, and soon, instead of aping Che Guevara, he had moved on to pretending to be like Jesus, which is obviously to some people highly offensive and blasphemous. Brand didn't want to just be a political guru; he wanted to be a spiritual one. I don't know if you know much about this, bro, but his journey on the mind, this journey on the mind was symbolized by the rapid rebranding of his revolution as Re-Love Yushin. So basically he branded himself as Jesus.
Yeah, I did. You know what happened was I heard he was doing a tour around the world. So it's going to start in the Middle East. It was a very controversial title. I think it was called the Coming of the Messiah or something like that. I'm just paraphrasing there. And now he's had to cancel it. Yeah. You do not go to religious countries with a title like that. Yeah. That's certainly going to cause trouble from the offset. Go on.
I was going to say, I mean, I've been a massive fan of his radio. I've listened to everything he's done. No exaggeration. It's probably one of the biggest inspirations, blah, blah, blah. So I've really, exposed myself to him. And there's a lot of references that he makes very early on to Jesus. Okay, I think he wrote a book or did a tour called 33, which was apparently when he gave up drugs, but also the age that Jesus was ascended or died or passed on, however you see it. So I mean, the guy's clearly playing with this ambiguity. He wants to get confused with Jesus.
I have to confess, I had a similar path. I was really a big fan of Jordan Peterson at the beginning. I used to watch all his talks, and he did some amazing talks when he was on that road to self kind of bettering yourself.
Me too.
Me too. Those books you wrote, 12 Paths to Rules to Happiness or whatever. When he was talking about that subject, when he was on that road, I was fine with him. I agreed with him. Mm-hmm. Now you fast forward, look at him now, and he's basically discussing every controversial topic and giving his own unique spin on it, which is not is very different from where he was. So he's kind of similar to with Russell Brand. You started off with the image, the way he talked, and same with me with Jordan Peterson. I thought he was amazing, it was great, and now when I watch some of his videos, I'm not too happy now with the things he says. Yeah, but we'll come back to that. Go on.
So I think to quickly recap, it's just he clearly modeled himself deliberately, styled himself, because I don't know if you remember in the night, when he was on MTV and that kind of thing, he had huge success with a series called Big Brother's Big Mouth, a reality show based thing, and he had wacky rock star sort of hairstyling, very, very, very stylized character, and then there's an inflection point and he starts dressing as is the common perception of what Jesus looked like from Renaissance art, long brown hair, the iconography. So it's like it's Boris Johnson's hair. It's just a curated manipulation.
But isn't this a case of his own success kind of affected his personality more and more? Say if you have ADHD, if you have a personality.
Bro, let's leave that for another time.
I know. I'm just mentioning the fact that his previous success led him down this path.
I mean, bro, the reason why I like talking about these topics is these false gurus that take people away from truth, from reality, from the righteous path, you might say. I think there's a really rich sea of factors, of phenomena. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean...
Do you understand what do you mean? What do you think I meant by that?
He's taking people away from the righteous path.
No. The second part.
Well, that was a bit ambiguous. So
it's like... it's basically... let's get back to the article. It's basically it's multifaceted. It's a big sea of factors, and it's basically.
I sometimes see when I see someone like him, to me, he's like a victim of his own mind.
Yeah,
you know.
So that's exactly why I mentioned it, bro. Because I think why people as a phenomena become gurus and lead so many people astray, according to some thinkers that I referenced before. Like, what is it? What's going on? And part of it is this, part of it is that. You know, how do cults form?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, you can't just say, well, they all had nice uniform. It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant when I'm saying there's a big sea of factors to explore. That's kind of what I was kind of referring to. So okay, right. Let's get back to this article. It's a weird sort of thing. He's almost like got a penchant for conspiracy theories in plain sight as well. In his second appearance on Newsnight, he was said to be open-minded about 9/11. And that it had been faked by the CIA. Not my opinion, just reading from the Spectator, and they're quoting Russell Brand. That's what he said. But by then, too many people had bought into him for this to derail him. He's too successful. He's already doing fine, so you can't even discredit him, even if you say something a little bit strange, let's say. This attention-seeking had found him credulity in this audience. So I'm going to wrap up this article now, because I think, and we'll discuss it a bit more. They thought they saw in Brand someone who could promote their ideas about how to transform society, and in Monbiot's case, George Monbiot, the environment, which is, as you know, I'm a big environmentalist, to a young audience, which would bring them into being. So they took this one-time Big Brother presenter and tried to make the new George Orwell out of him. But like all attention seekers, Brand got bored quickly, ADHD, and before he could save the world, he had already moved on to full-time conspiracy theorist Brand. Monbiot concluded last week that he has become the opposite of what he was. The signs that Brand was a shyster, basically someone who just does things according to what is convenient, were all there all along. You just had to see it. It was there in plain sight. And they weren't even subtle. This cosplay Che Guevara wasn't deluded, and he basically tricked Monbiot and others, including myself. They were deluding themselves. Brand was never the Messiah. He was just a very silly boy. That was an article from the Spectator. Do check it out, breaking down how Russell Brand went from a darling off the left to a darling off the far right. Go on, Insta.
Go on. I want to say something here.
Say lots of things. We can talk. Yeah.
Your journey of knowledge, of gaining knowledge, is always developing. It's never static. It's never still. One view you might have might change over time.
Yeah.
The more knowledge that you gain. For instance, sorry, there's a few examples. I've always, people always constantly used to say in the media, Africans, they're so lazy, we don't develop the nations, they don't modernize, they don't do this and that. But over the years, I've learned, Africa is affected by certain global trends.
Yeah,
I would say it's certain global processes which makes it difficult for them to develop so normally. They're affected by outside forces.
Yeah.
And everything is affected by internal and external forces, whether it's a nation or a community or a person. You and me, we are on here on the inside looking out, and we're affected by the environment we live in. And so, there's always that line when you can change your views in the future, somewhere down the line. And it's happened to me, and you helped me change a lot of views of a lot of the things that I believed in.
A lot more changing to be done, bro.
Yeah.
God, I don't like a lot of what you say, bro.
Yeah.
I'm joking. It's a joke.
So I think with this example with Russell Brand, he may have learned new things and changed his views on them. But what in this case is kind of you're saying that right from the beginning the signs were there. He's an opportunist, he's a narcissist, that he's self-indulgent. Is he a little child who wants attention? Has he spent his life cultivating these an image, with all these traits? Does he believe himself to be a messianic figure?
Yeah.
Or is he just playing a game? And over time, these things come out in the open. And, you talked about your point you made that he's gone from one end of the spectrum to the other end, from the left to the right. And I wanted to share an example where it's been the opposite. There's a Scandinavian MP, former politicians. I think there's been two.
Just in the sentence. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. There's been examples where people have switched over to the opposing views.
So how do you think that relates to Russell Brand?
I think he started off, sympathising with right-wing views or conservative views. The more knowledge that you learn. Say for instance, that's an example. If someone out there blames the corporations for all the problems of the world, or something like consumerism, and they're taking out the materials and with the environment as we all want to save. But on the other side of the fence, you can say, well, if people are to blame for that as well. The culture that we live in, people want to spend, buy things, and then buy disposable things and just throw them away. So it's both sides are at fault for this kind of huge consumer madness that we kind of live in.
I'm trying to understand I don't get what you mean.
You're saying I'm trying to explain why some people switch their views.
Yeah, go on. Go
in the opposite direction, and that over time people can naturally switch their views.
Okay, yeah. So what you're saying? So what you're saying
is that some people, if they do switch their views, it's not always a clear example of they were doing it on purpose. It wasn't a deliberate manipulation.
That's a really good point.
Yeah,
and I think how do you differentiate?
Yeah, how do you differentiate?
And I think that's a really difficult thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's impossible because I think as an example, when you think about again, these are the conversations we've had in cafes, right? How can you tell if someone's fake?
Yeah,
right. That's
exactly.
really the question we're asking. This guy, the Swedish anti-Islamic guy,
Joram van Klaveren.
Yeah,
he was the second politician to. He was part of the far-right Dutch group. Geerts Wilders, the guy who created it.
Malcolm X, as another example. He was staunchly against Orthodox Islam, and then got converted to Orthodox Islam after seeing. And then
after traveling to Mecca.
Yeah. Right. So, I'm not even gonna question what you. That's 100% agree. There's even guys like the what's he called? Thomas Sowell, who is a very famous writer, political thinker, and again a very much a darling of the far right. And basically he used to be a left-leaning person when he was doing his PhD in economics. I think he was studying minimum wage in Puerto Rico and how it impacted the economy. Don't ask me how I remembered that. I already know too much about this guy because it's not something useful, let's say. But basically, he switched completely the other way. So as a phenomena, there's no doubt that people can switch 180 degrees.
I have listened to a lot of Thomas Sowell over the years.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a complete. He didn't just suddenly switch.
It wasn't sudden, but it was a complete switch.
Yeah. But we know with Thomas Sowell, I'll say he does explain why he kind of moved over to that side.
Yeah.
He gained those views.
He puts his points across brilliantly.
Brilliant, brilliant. And he's talking about his upbringing.
Yeah.
I think it was in Harlem or in the what was it, in 40s or 50s as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains how black culture changed over the decades, and it's when they started losing their the family value system, etc.
Yeah.
You know, he says basically is internal reasons why, and you know, they didn't, the lack of unity, community spirit let them down, and in some regions this is what caused the downfall of some communities. So he kind of sees, look, you can't just blame the government or the country.
Cool.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So basically, what the thing that we're talking about now is like how, when we're talking, we've just listed a whole bunch of examples of people switching from one side to the other, going from being Islamophobic to being Muslim, for example, right?
Yeah.
And I think the thought experiment we're going to meditate on in the next segment is just, well, how do you differentiate?
Yeah.
Russell Brand, are we giving, is the Spectator, is George Monbiot giving him a hard time? How do you differentiate between sincerity and someone genuinely making a transition and somebody who's what's the word I'm looking for? Being manipulative.
Yeah, basically a fraudster.
A fraudster.
You know, someone who kind of manipulates his image for his own advantage.
Yeah. Right. So we'll talk about that in the next section. You're listening to DBK and Inside Hack, and we are talking about fake gurus and people that lead us astray away from the promised, the righteous path. We're going to be back very soon after these messages.
This is Heritage Radio.